Welcome to the Microcast, the short-form podcast from Microcosm Coaching, where we break down the science, strategy, and psychology behind smarter endurance training. Each week, we tackle a key concept in running, training, or recovery, and we give you practical tools you can apply right away, whether you're building back, leveling up, or chasing down a big goal. We keep it short, evidence-based, and grounded in real coaching experience. No hype, no fluff, just actionable insights to help you train sustainably and perform at your best. Let's get into it.
Back, Zoe.
We're here. We're doing an extra special episode,
Extra
I guess.
special?
I would say it's extra special because I tried to make an outline that was like less than 20 pages for this. I couldn't do it, which is ironic given the topic of today's episode. We're not doing a hot or not. We're not answering listening questions. It is all the stuff that we want to talk about. No interruptions, no filler, all killer.
All killer?
All killer.
No filler.
No filler.
Well, what are we getting into?
So you and I really wanted to talk about overthinking, broadly
Yes.
writ. I think that this can really, it can really mean a lot of things, but I think that, as coaches, I am in some ways glad this phenomenon exists because it means that you and I are going to be gainfully employed forever, which is a positive. But I would say that one of the number one things that I see athletes self-sabotage with is overthinking, latching on to the wrong things, obsessing about the wrong things. And I think that it gets particularly bad because the social media run podcast industrial complex incentivizes overcomplicating training.
Right. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. What is really interesting to me about this topic is not only how much we deal with this in our coaching, but how much we actually deal with this ourselves as athletes. And I've been reflecting on this a lot recently in my own training. I just had a birthday, and for me, birthdays for whatever reason always bring on a lot of introspection. And before we even came together and we're like, we should do a podcast on overthinking, I was actually thinking about this.
You were thinking about overthinking.
I was thinking about how much less I overthink in training now. And I was on my run on Sunday, right, on my birthday, and I was like, it just feels so good to just run and not care how fast you're going and not care if you're going to accomplish your goals or not, and still be able to like hold that in one hand while wanting to like push your potential and do really well in the other.
Right. Because what we're not advocating for is like, no fucks given, don't pay attention, train. I think like, I hate the idea of like training intuitively because I feel like that pits structure against intuition, where I think any training program, any coaching relationship should beautifully balance intuition and feeling with, again, just like, I guess, like physiology, like just fucking how science works. Like I think science is more important than feelings. However, how people feel necessarily must be integrated into the training. And so it's this core tension of like, so often people overthink things when they are insecure and when they don't know things.
Right. And I was, I think to bring it full circle for me, I was like, man, it just feels so nice to not be weighted down by that. And, even at this point, I've been an athlete for, decades and decades. It still is something that I'm working on. And it's nice to see the benefit of that year on year and the joy and the gratitude you get for your training, and the results get better because you're focused on the stuff that actually matters, and you're no longer bogged down by the pressures of overthinking that lead to poor behaviors and really missing the mark.
Yeah. So, I think what this can look like is, I think everyone knows or has been or has coached the athlete that tracks 48 different metrics every single day. They've color-coded their spreadsheets in their training log. They know exactly what their cadence is on any given day and what their ground contact time is, but they just like literally couldn't tell you how their run felt, if you ask them, are you tired? They would have to like check their Garmin to see like, oh, am I tired?
Right.
And so I think the paradox here is that data is a wonderful tool for helping guiding and informed training, but it is a tool that you must figure out how to wield correctly. And using it like as a blunt force object to just bludgeon yourself or bludgeon the training with is not the evidence-based way of using data. I think sometimes people get this thing of like, numbers, it must be science, but you have to contextualize all of this. And so I think a lot of data can lead to a lot of anxiety, and that can lead to, I think, paradoxically, worse training decisions and therefore worse performance. So athletes will often think they're being quote unquote scientific, but science isn't just about data collection. It's not just a spreadsheet. You don't, when scientists do experiments, they don't just go out and gather a spreadsheet and then they're like, here you go, bleh, and just vomit the data. It's about asking the right questions and testing hypotheses. But obsessing over metrics devoid of that context isn't science. It's just noise. It's just clutter. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I think you set it up well. Today we're just going to talk about the ways in which athletes overthink and how that self-limits and self-sabotages their training, what we can do about that. How can we shine a spotlight on that so we can, recognize it in ourselves and not fall into these traps. So let's get into the Overthinking Hall of Fame for a little bit here.
I set up a Hall of Fame.
I love this.
Number one, I think the number one award winner of like the best way you can overthink training is starting to be the pace police.
Yeah.
So that looks like obsessing over hitting exact paces regardless of terrain, weather, or how you felt. It means speeding up on easy days because of how the pace looks and being afraid it will look too slow on Strava or Training Peaks. It means slowing down on hard days to hit a target number rather than executing the intended effort. And this is when you're a member of the pace police, for you, training becomes about hitting numbers, not building fitness.
And I know that both of us are recovering pace policers.
Yes, yeah. I wish I had a little hat that said pace police.
Spent a little time in this part of the Hall of Fame.
Pace jail.
Yeah, it's it's part of the process. I feel like especially as athletes take their training more seriously, their identity becomes more wrapped up in those numbers and how it looks, how it appeals to people on the outside looking in. Newsflash, not many people actually or anybody really cares about your numbers except for probably you and your
If you
coach.
care about someone else's training numbers, get a life, get a girlfriend, get a mom, like figure out something else to do with your one wild impression.
Get a mom. Just get yourself a mom.
I've started knitting and I have no time to be on Strava.
It's very good. Your grandma
I am crushing
activities,
wool right now.
You're doing very well. It's very mindful.
It's so mindful.
And it's helping you to stay off Strava
and
to stop looking at your pace.
Correct.
And probably other metrics as well, which we'll get into. But this is a really, really common one, which is why it's in the Hall of Fame. And why this backfires is training stimulus is about physiological stress, not arbitrary speed. Our speed changes, our output levels change every day, every month, every week, every year. It's always changing based on how we feel.
Yeah.
How our sleep is, our recovery status, the training we've done leading into that event or that training session, that run, that long run, whatever it is. And terrain makes a big difference with this stuff too. RPE 5 uphill at 11-minute mile creates the same aerobic adaptation as RPE 5 at 9:30-minute pace on the flats. We have to understand that stuff if we're trying to force the data into a certain box or to make it look pretty. We're going to likely run too hard or too slow, and it's going to undermine the adaptations we're actually trying to create, which is a problem if you're investing a lot of time in this and you want to get better.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, your watch, your Whoop, Oura Ring, whatever it is, Strava doesn't know if you're dehydrated, you didn't sleep, it's hot as hell, you're running in Leadville at 10,000 feet, you have a cold, you have a headwind, your legs are tired because you did a VO2 max workout yesterday. So real science measures intensity by lactate, VO2, or perceived exertion, not by how fast you're moving across the ground. But so often we conflate pace as being, well, because it's easy to measure, therefore it must be important.
Right.
And these things that are harder to measure, like the exact point at which you can no longer shuttle blood or lactate from the bloodstream, that's actually that's a good piece of data to have if it's available to you.
It's a hard point.
Yeah, it's a hard point. That's like an actual thing. Pace, I mean, it's a proxy for effort. And so you can't You can't use effort. You can't subsume effort to pace. Effort is the king of the day. So I think that this is important to talk about, because if you fall into this trap, easy runs can inadvertently turn into workouts because you're just getting suckered into trying to hit a specific pace. Or you push into the gray zone, which is when you're training too hard to recover, but not hard enough to create meaningful adaptation. And you end up chronically fatigued. You're not fresh enough for your workouts. So oftentimes this is like, we'll see athletes get in this like kind of negative feedback loop of like, they quote unquote feel slow. So they train a little too spicy to not feel slow. Therefore, they never really recover. So they're not getting the most out of their workout. So they actually kind of do shortchange those like physiological adaptations, which some people would say actually makes you slow. So that's why feelings not as important. So I think the irony here is that obsessing about your pace oftentimes will make you slower because you're never recovered enough to run hard when it counts.
And I think a lot of this, like, so much of this overthinking ends up in this area of feelings, right?
Yes.
Like, I don't like
vibes.
It's
vibes, but people don't realize it's vibes.
Right. No, it's 100% vibes. Like, how understanding how you feel and having a strong sense of awareness around that is integral in training and being a successful athlete or human being, you know, in whatever discipline you're going for. Without some self-awareness, it's going to be pretty hard to improve.
Or often, you know, you'll have an athlete, which like, again, like setbacks, plateaus, all are a normal part of the training process. If you're on that plateau or in that setback for a long period of time, that merits a longer discussion. But oftentimes I'll see athletes try to bludgeon their coach with like, look, I compared it with this run from the exact same day last year, and I am 4/millionths of a second slower up this one hill. And I'm like, yeah, like I'm sure you can pick some data out of a hat to support whatever the hell you're feeling today. But we're talking about context. We're talking about finding signal in the noise, because you can tell whatever the fuck story you want. You can support whatever the fuck feeling you're having with data. We're looking for like big picture stuff here.
Right. And again, and I can't wait because we'll go into this a little bit deeper, not to spoil it, but athletes tend, especially the longer we train, and athletes who have a lot of self-efficacy and are typically trying to learn about the why behind their workouts and build up a scientific knowledge of training and exercise science, or start to get really good at rationalizing their bad behaviors. They're moving their training in a direction.
Have you ever had the athlete do a thing where they send you a study because they're like, I want to do this, and then like someone will send me a study with like 3 rats, and I'm like, yeah, we're still not doing that, bro. Like,
I have had that happen a couple times. I'm fortunate. I feel like in a good spot with my roster right now, where we have a good rapport, and that's not really happening. But
this has happened. This is thankfully has not happened recently, but it has happened. So
it's part of the process.
Studies are my love language, and so when people weaponize that against me, that's very hurtful, guys.
Well, I think that's a good transition into the data collector.
Yes.
Who is another Hall of Fame member here. Yep. And what this looks like is we're looking at heart rate zones, cadence, ground contact time, vertical oscillation, training stress score, HRV every morning, sleep scores, readiness scores, and basically all the freaking scores we can find. And we end up in this situation where we have paralysis by analysis.
Yep.
Like, my HRV was down 5 points today. Should I run? And we're spending more time analyzing the run and the data around it than like actually doing the run and listening to how our body feels. Did I feel good today? Did I feel recovered? Did I feel off today? Should I be eating more? Going through this a much more less data noisy process and going into a process of just getting down to kind of the facts. Like, did this feel good or not?
Yeah, I feel like so often as coaches, we are training people what data is helpful to look at and what data is just like fancy noise, best case scenario. So let's talk about why obsessing about all the data backfires.
Yeah.
A lot of times what this leads athletes to do is to confuse causation with correlation. And just because your watch measures something doesn't mean it's actionable or honestly even relevant. And oftentimes that's because we're missing context. Most metrics need need weeks of baseline data to be any level of meaningful. One day's HRV number tells you nothing without the larger context of how that compares against your baseline and your baseline over larger swaths of time. It's also important to acknowledge the black box algorithm of it all. And if you put garbage in, garbage is going to come out.
Right.
Because things like wrist-based heart rate is notoriously inaccurate, especially in cold weather, for folks with melanated skin during hard efforts. I don't know about you, but I jostle. My runs jostle.
Yeah.
Jostling, not helpful for the wrist-based heart rate monitors. So you're making decisions on already flawed data. If you are into gathering heart rate data, awesome. Get the gear for it. Even though I'm seeing that some wrist-based heart rate is getting more accurate, again, if this is something you want to use, like, get the thing,
Yeah, get the right tool for the job. And I'll just jump in here because I do feel like the worst thing is when you have an athlete who is notorious for going through all the data and then the tools for the job aren't the right tools. And so they have all this noise.
I had an athlete schedule an appointment with their doctor because their heart rate was high based on wrist-based heart rate.
No.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, if something feels off, like, obviously, yes, contact a medical professional, but, like, dude, your Garmin does not have a PhD, dog.
I remember my first Suunto, or my second Suunto, used to tell me my heart rate while running was, like, at 210 beats per minute.
Hell yeah, dude.
And I was like, where is this coming from? Like, I can't run easy.
Yeah.
What's wrong with me?
I think I'm dying.
But the problem is we lose touch with our body awareness. And we're also losing touch with it based on data that is not accurate in many circumstances.
Yeah. And one of the greatest skills that athletes need to develop is interoception.
Yes.
And if you're like the sensing inside of yourself, so constantly outsourcing how your body feels and your bodily awareness to devices literally degrades your ability to feel what is happening inside. Athletes in studies who use too many of these devices and spend too much time, again, just being dependent on them, literally, like, their ability to tell you how well they slept, how hard they ran, how, like, all of these things. Am I full? Did I eat? Am I tired? Your ability to understand yourself will decline if you. It's a skill, and like anything, we need to practice. We need to flex that muscle too.
What I've seen even worse is I've seen athletes second guess how they feel, and go to the data. And it's like, oh, this felt good. Oh, the data says it was bad. It was bad. The output levels were not as good. The output levels aren't what good is defined by. So this is a bad run. Well, you felt good. Well, the output levels weren't right. Well, the output levels, are likely not as good as they could be because you did 2 workouts this week. So you're tired. No, I couldn't be tired. Oh, okay. So
cool.
Yeah, sure. You're not tired. Fine. You're just a machine that can just do 2 workouts. Right. And the rest of us, we do 2 workouts and we're not tired either.
Yeah.
This is where I feel like we're just not being scientific, and we want to be scientific.
Yeah.
So, science uses the simplest measure that answers the question.
Yes.
I think that's so important. Like, the simplest answer to your problem is usually the right one.
Yes.
And one of the things that I find so important, and I love to reiterate this to athletes, so this is one of those moments for people to, pause and rewind and listen again what I'm about to say.
Do you literally do that when you listen to podcasts?
Once in a while, absolutely. Or an audiobook, if I hear something I really want to integrate it, I'll go back 10 seconds, listen to it again, maybe even write it down. So this is one of those moments. Elite runners don't track 14 different metrics. They track effort, sleep quality, and how they feel above and beyond everything else.
Yep.
They are not bogged down by this process of going over and over analyzing the data where data analysis is necessary. Their coach does that, and they trust their coach to do that. And therefore, they're saving vital resources that they can put back into their training. So research on marathoners shows RPE predicts performance better than heart rate zones.
Yep.
So, it's great that we use heart rate, and, it's nice when athletes have that as an extra measure. But again, RPE is the gold standard. And I swear we've said this so many times on this podcast.
I feel like our podcast could just be like the RPE cast.
And it's like I feel like,
I do hope that people aren't like put off by, cause like,
sure.
I know that sometimes like I can come off as dogmatic and everyone has like their little pet training theory. And I hope that this continues to be a place where we genuinely look at the evidence and talk about what works. And so hopefully folks who are like just like absolutely married to their, their heart rate zones and their training, whatever, are still, bearing with us to hear that the most scientific approach is to ask, what is the least amount of data I need to make good decisions?
Yeah, I think that's a great question.
Only track that.
Right.
Because if it doesn't help change, if it doesn't help modify your behavior, then it's not helpful data.
Mm-hmm. Right. If it's not something that leads to a change right now, is it really something that's important to track? And so here's the real talk. You can't optimize what you don't understand.
Correct.
And you can't optimize data that is already bad data.
Yep.
So, collecting data.
Can't optimize a shit sandwich.
Yeah, totally. And also collecting data isn't the same thing as using data intelligently.
Correct.
This is one of those things, again, these data trends happen over long periods of time. It's pretty I love this about pace. Like the pace numbers are something that changes for most athletes over really long periods of time. They don't really happen that quickly.
Yeah.
And people get really attached to that number. I want to be faster. So my easy run must be faster. That's a measurement of growth. Well, actually easy pace running happens on a bell curve.
Yeah.
Most athletes start
way
pretty
too
far
hard
down. They end up at the top of the curve, and then they realize it's more advantageous to go slower, the fitter and the more aware they get. So there's so much here. Hopefully, if you're a data collector, you're thinking about ways in which you can start to loosen the grip around that.
Yeah, and
go back to how it feels.
This goes to one of, I think, the most important truisms in our industry is that dumb people will take a simple concept like training and make it sound overly complicated to sell you a training plan or to sell you a podcast or to, just sound smart and heal whatever part of them wasn't held enough as a child. Smart people know how to make complicated concepts simpler.
Yes.
So if you're engaged with a culture with communicators who are overly complicating things and telling you need to, have your cadence and vertical oscillation measured, no, absolutely not.
Slow it down and take a breath.
Yep.
We don't need all of that to be successful.
Yes, numbers will not make you whole.
All right, let's talk about a couple more of these Hall of Famers before moving on here. The plan perfectionist. What this looks like is missing a workout becomes this catastrophic event. I've ruined my whole week, my whole training cycle. Life happens, exhausted, sick. Doesn't matter. I have to do the training as it is, as it's prescribed, no flexibility, total rigidity. And I think that, rigidity following a downloaded plan doesn't account for your life, your stress, your recovery. Same thing when working with the coach. I've had athletes who are very rigid. I myself have been a very rigid athlete.
I'd say this is probably the demo I fall into. And I'm on that journey with you all.
Yeah, we're here for it. We're trying to become more flexible, as the years go on and we become, maybe wiser, more self-aware athletes. But, in essence, it's really just treating training like a checklist to complete rather than a stimulus that helps us adapt and get better. And the way that this backfires is adaptation happens during recovery, not during training.
Yeah.
And the workout is the stimulus. That's how we create the stress that helps you get stronger. But that happens when you're resting.
Yeah. So again, the basic equation that we always come back to is training plus recovery equals adaptation. Training plus no recovery equals breakdown. That's not like a motivational cute bumper sticker moment for you. That is just literally physiology boiled down. And so it's really important to understand that cumulative stress matters so much more than individual sessions because your body doesn't distinguish between running stress, work stress, life stress. It hits all the same stress response systems like cortisol, inflammatory markers, your nervous system. So if you're exhausted, you need to not train. Period. Training on an already stressed system just digs you deeper into a hole. And if you don't have the recovery resources, best case scenario, nothing happens. Worst case scenario, again, breakdown.
So a little bit of research here. Missed workouts have almost no impact on fitness if you're consistent over time. That's the caveat. If you're consistent over time, missing a workout here and there is not a big deal. Overtraining syndrome takes months to recover from.
Correct.
So when you do take that extra rest, that is a buffer against risk of overtraining and injury and any other, negative outcomes that can happen in the training process. So the athlete who makes it to the starting line healthy, that athlete's always going to beat athletes who were tied up in this like perfectionist mindset and got injured along the way.
Or overtrained. Like it's always better to show up like a little bit maybe underbaked, but healthy and ready to compete. Because I mean, if you show up and hypothetically completed all your training as assigned, but now you're injured, you're burned out, you're overtrained, congratulations, you completed your training, quote unquote, perfectly, but now you're not going to be able to reap the rewards of that stimulus because you haven't recovered.
And I think that the biggest thing here from a psychological perspective is that perfectionism is that thing that covers up our insecurity about the training not being sufficient.
Yeah.
And so, it comes down to trust.
Ourselves not being sufficient. I know.
Right. I mean,
I know when I feel insecure about my abilities as an athlete, that's when I really cling to my training plan. And I know and am in and will continue to do enough therapy to hopefully continue to loosen my little goblin claws on the training. But like
grabbing at it.
When other life things are stressful or feel outside of my control, I know that I try to exert more control on the training to like displace it. And spoiler alert, that never ends well.
Yeah. I mean, when we're seeking insecurity, when we're insecure, we're seeking that security outside of ourselves. It's already
just one tempo workout away from being enough.
Exactly.
Jay'll tell me I'm pretty.
If you nail this one, I will make you dinner and tell you you're great.
Yes, that's all I want.
If you run when you're sick, I'll make you dinner.
Yes, he loves it.
Oh, you're awesome. And that's the negative feedback loop here that honestly is a real issue for athletes. We've all been in this situation before. And the key is like, recognize it if you're in there. Then commit to trying to make a better decision the next time.
We're all humans. Yeah. Like we all have these, lizard brains. Just let's figure out how to make them run smarter.
Yes.
So I think another Hall of Famer here is the recovery skipper or underminer. And so these are the people who are like, running easy is a waste of time. They feel like they struggle with feeling like they're being lazy. Like if they don't get their sweat on, if they don't hurt, if they don't feel tired, it wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
And so they end up doing a lot of days at that moderate effort because hard feels too hard and they're absolutely not recovering. They can't access that, but easy feels too slow. This is also the person that thinks that more volume always equals better fitness. And they wear that like fatigue as a badge of honor. If I'm not like earning fatigue, if I don't get to the end of my week absolutely bedraggled and in tears that I didn't go hard enough.
If I'm not totally destroyed and,
if I'm not just a human jelly.
The lactate's not coming out of my eyes and ears, I haven't done a good enough job.
I taste pennies at the end of all of my runs.
Every single easy run I have tasted pennies.
I blacked out after my mobility session.
Oh,
my hips are so mobile.
There's a recovery skipper in all of us.
Yeah. Again, like I laugh at all of this because I am and have been and will probably continue to be varying degrees of all of this. I'm a human, you're a human. And that's why I hired a coach, is because I can't out-human myself. So I outsource it.
So let's polarize our training, guys. And we've done a podcast on this, but to just go through this really quickly, elite endurance athletes and all of you guys, because you're putting in an elite
if you look at what I bring this into the outline, because the research shows that elite runners are better at polarizing their training than amateurs.
Of course. And that's one of the reasons why they are separated from the amateurs.
It's less of like I'm not trying to disentangle the causation correlation of it all.
Understood. And I think that we can take from what the best practices are of elite endurance athletes, we can take that into our practices as elites and athletes and coaches who work with sub-elite or amateur runners, because they train 80% of their time at RPE 4 to 6.
Yeah.
So zone 1 and zone 2, and around 20% of their time is at higher effort levels.
Yeah.
And that's really, really key. They recover really, really well.
Great. Well, now that we've spent half an hour dunking on all the ways that we can be dumb.
Dunking on the facets of my personality.
Again, like we have met the enemy and she is me. Hi, I'm the problem. Let's talk about why we overthink. And, this is something that like anecdotally we see as coaches and research backs up, is that a lot of this, like when we get to the root of it all and why our brains trick us, a lot of it really is based in social media. Instagram shows highlight reels of people crushing workouts, of fast paces, high mileage weeks, but almost no one ever posts like, I ran slow and listened to my body today.
Yeah.
And it creates this false impression that everyone else is always on, and our brains just simply aren't wired to handle seeing 200 people's best performances daily and then having to live with the reality of being a human who is training, where I think you cite this frequently. The rule of thirds is like a third of runs are going to feel great, third of runs are going to feel just okay, third are going to be absolute dog meat.
Shit sandwich
without the bread.
So bad.
Not good. And it creates this like, man, why is my training harder? Why am I slower? And it literally, like, even if you're like, I'm a smart person, I don't do that. Yes, you do. This is just how brains work. So we will train to impress strangers on the internet instead of just head down, focus on your own goals.
Yeah.
And I see this often with like athletes comparing themselves to, so-and-so on Strava, and like so-and-so's doing these workouts, or so-and-so is running 5 100-mile races in a summer, and great for them, may not be for you.
I couldn't agree more, Zoe. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about mistaking complexity for competence?
Yes, I love this one. To me, this is the opposite of BD. So the psychological trick here is that sophisticated looking data and like these like dashboards with like where it looks sort of like the Charlie Day meme of like the red thread, or like the Julia Roberts meme with like the, like all the numbers and like graphs. Sophisticated training feels scientific.
I'm just going to interject here and say this is a little bit like the Training Peaks dashboard.
I'm such a love-hate relationship. I don't know. Sometimes I open it up and I'm like, oh my God, am I trying to land a jet on the moon? What is this?
Right?
Complicated training plans feel professional when you see fancy workouts and like really intricate descriptions of things. Simple advice feels too easy to be effective. It can't be that easy. Training must be complicated. Like, it feels hard, so we assume that like the things underpinning it must be complicated. It must be out of reach for us. And our brains start to equate effort, whether it's mental or physical, with value. But what the research actually shows is that, like I said before, expertise is about simplification, not complication. And masters in any field make things look easy because they've stripped away the noise, not because they're super tapped into 100 different charts in the background.
Yes.
And the best coaches will always give simple, clear guidance, not 10-page spreadsheets. And that doesn't mean there's not room for nuance and individuation, but if, and I always have to stop myself when I'm working one-on-one with coaches because I love science. Unfortunately, I love talking at people, and I'm always trying to be better at listening at people and not just yelling PubMed citations at people, even though, again, that is my love language. But if you need to be able to distill things down into like, what does this mean? What does this look like in practice? And if you can't explain it simply, then you just don't understand it well enough. And that's not like a cute, like, Mark Twain quote. That's how learning works.
Yeah, I love that. It reminds me about, my work with my coach.
Yeah.
I love the fact that his replies to my log entries in Training Peaks are like sometimes like 5 words, or most of the time are like 5 words.
I don't know that I've ever gotten like more than a sentence.
Right.
I think
it's just
one
like,
of the
this
best
is the
response,
right to the point.
Just like an all-of-time Hall of Famer was rinse and repeat. I was
rinse and repeat.
Honestly, fuck yeah, dude.
I mean, and I'm trying to do that more in my coaching because
I want to have the fucking balls to roll into Training Peaks and just say rinse and repeat. Aspire.
Do this 8 more times and then get back to me.
Once a day, every day for the next 10 years. Then we'll see.
So I love this. Okay, let's get into fear of not doing enough.
Ooh.
This is probably the most prevalent. This is inside of every single athlete.
I got that dog in me.
And if you feel like it's not in you, you're just not aware of it. So let's think about that for a minute. So scarcity mindset in training, more feels safer than less. Kind of goes back to that attitude of, you know what, like I'm not feeling so secure in this, so I'm going to do more. That behavior is going to help cover up my insecurity and my lack of trust in my training. When we're afraid that what we're doing is not enough, we're going to fall behind, we're not going to reach our goals, we're going to make decisions that undermine our training long term.
Yes. Yeah. And again, this is like rooted. We have this feeling that if we're not constantly pushing, then we're falling behind. Everything becomes zero sum. And this is rooted in the, psychological phenomenon of loss aversion. We are wired to be adverse to loss, which is a cognitive bias where we fear losing things more than we value potential gains. And so what's important to understand that in training, more is not better, more is more appropriate. Is better.
Right.
I know it's like not sexy. Like you're never going to go into like a CrossFit gym and in like the like primal handwriting, it says like appropriate training, appropriate stimulus with recovery.
I feel like I'm getting some really good Strava titles for like upcoming runs. Listen to my body today.
Yeah.
Appropriate stimulus.
Yeah. Felt recovered. Might delete later.
Did less. It was better.
Yeah. Yeah. So my next lower back tattoo is just going to say minimum effective dose. But that's actually,
wow.
It's such an important thing because it's not about being lazy. It's about being strategic.
Yeah.
Again, like the thing of like work smarter, not harder. Yeah. Every mile, everything you do, every minute of training has a cost. Time, energy, recovery resources, injury risk. There is no neutral action. You are either recovering or withdrawing from your recovery bank. So the question should not always be, can I do more? The question should be, will doing more now help me reach my goal better than the alternative, which would be a really long lower back tattoo. I would love to see it in the wild.
It's so good. And I think athletes, if you're listening to this out there, maybe pause, grab your journal, reflect a little bit about how that shows up for you. I've never met an athlete who does not in some way inform their training with a scarcity mindset.
We're humans. Like, everywhere. Again, like show me, honestly, hot take, I don't know how many self-actualized people get into endurance running.
Right. Like if you feel like you're enough, would you race at all?
Again, that's a little rich for my blood, but I will say that at a population level, are we the best adjusted people who are like all on our abundance shit? Maybe not.
No, but I do think that
plenty of room for variation.
I do think that one of the benefits of endurance sports is it helps to inform us of the things we need to work on so we can end up where we really want to be. And a great place to be at in your training is to feel it's sufficient for the goals that you want to achieve.
Yeah, because doing vanity mileage is the exercise physiology equivalent of driving a giant truck.
Right. And
you're not doing it if you're packing heat.
And I know, like, maybe, I don't know if we're maybe coming off a little strong in this area. At least sometimes I feel like I am as a coach because I see this so much. It's so normal to approach training from this perspective because
you're human and we're human.
And it takes us all the way back to like when we were cavemen, and without that mindset, we wouldn't have been able to survive. But in a modern world with Training Peaks and Strava, it's not as helpful, which is why it's great to have a coach and to really have that back and forth dialogue where you can discuss, what is actually the minimum dose for effective adaptation here.
Which brings me to my next point that I think is, again, at the root cause of a lot of this is the fitness industry's profit motive here, because let's be real, complexity sells, simplicity doesn't. A reel where your coach tells you to rinse and repeat is just simply not going to go viral, but something of vertical oscillation 180 cadence on the fourth full moon of every odd month, that's going to go so freaking viral. And if I told you run easy most days, hard sometimes, sleep well, be consistent, maybe forever, I can't sell you anything. And if you feel sufficient and if you feel in touch with your body, you are an extremely frightening person, because I can't take money from you.
That's the person I don't want to race against, honestly.
Yes, totally. Someone who's like, I'm on my shit. I drive a Prius and I'm in touch with my body. That's a fucking scary competitor, dude.
Yeah. So every new metric is just some device that we should buy, something that's being sold to us, some kind of new subscription to pay for. I'm advocating we get back to a slightly more bare bones approach to this.
Cuneiform on clay tablets.
Use the data that matters most, that informs good training decisions now. Develop a good relationship with this process and awareness around whether you fall into some of these traps so you can train more sustainably and effectively over time. And then you're likely going to achieve more than you thought you were capable of.
Yeah, because training should enhance your life. It shouldn't dominate it, and it shouldn't totally deteriorate your wallet.
I love this segue because it takes us right into the simplicity framework that we wanted to get into in this part of the podcast. So what do we want to focus on outside of the data? Where can we put our trust? Where can we put our attention?
Again, we said it, so we're not going to go too in depth here, but RPE, rate of perceived exertion. I always get the actual words mixed up. Hail, RPE, rate of perceived exertion. Elite coaches use RPE as their primary intensity guide, and your perception of effort is the integration of thousands of physiological symbols. Your brain is sophisticated. Trust that. I think people like so often like the RPE spectrum is like a dumb little emoji thing where like in the middle it's like the Charlie Brown like wah wah face, and then like on the far end it's like a very sad face, and then in my like spiritual spectrum it would be like the cowboy emoji, like the yeah with like the cowboy hat. That is like your sense of yourself is an extremely sophisticated, complicated, nuanced way of understanding your body, the effort, all of those things at play. Trust it. Just because it's like a cute little spectrum with faces doesn't mean it's not scientific. And listen to the literally at this point millions of hours of content I feel like we've put out in the past.
We go over the RPE scale in depth.
I'm surprised it didn't come up in our vows. It might have, and I just forgot.
So do we want to go into some of these questions?
Yeah, so I think some better questions to ask yourself rather than like, did I hit the pace, is how did that feel? So that way you can tap into what the actual training stimulus is. Or could I have had a conversation? I always like to ask my athletes, like, could you call your mom or partner and leave a voicemail that's like not that embarrassing? Because easy run should be truly easy. I would also ask, am I recovering like a boss? Which means looking at sleep quality, your appetite, your mood, your motivation. Those things all matter more than any single metric. And getting really clear and asking yourself, did this workout serve my goal? Not all miles are equal. I don't like the framework of like junk miles because I think that there's like, it's used and bandied about and there's no like real scientific definition. But I think rating your training stimulus on a scale of like, did this serve me given my goals and bandwidth right now?
Yeah.
And I think that one of the TJ-isms I really wanted to integrate here is this proving or improving, and try to move from that space of I'm proving things to I'm actually improving things, which is sort of a mindset check. Are you building fitness or performing prematurely? Hate that premature performance. I feel like I could have worded that better. But
you could have chose different words, but you know what?
I chose those
People
words.
Get it. Now they really understand what you're talking about.
Thank you.
Premature and performance.
Hate that premature calculation. Never good.
So these questions are important and they work because they require body awareness.
Interoception.
Interoception. Thank you. I love that word.
I think having a fun, fancy word, again, like the try hard and he's like, oh, SAT word of the day.
Yes. They are outcome focused, but they are not obsessed. And I think this is why I find these kind of questions really helpful for athletes. They get to the heart of what am I feeling? How do I feel about this? Could I have approached this differently? If so, what actions can I take next time to perform better? That interoception that you mentioned, an outcome focus, but a feeling-based outcome more so than a data-driven, pace-specific outcome. And it keeps you connected to your purpose, which I think is really important.
So important
for, a healthy, sustainable, joyful process and relationship with your training over time.
Because like the truth is, for folks that get really bogged down in the data, one of two things tends to happen where someday it comes for us all. We'll get data that isn't exciting, isn't sexy, and is maybe even like, if not interpreted correctly, negative. Like maybe we feel like we're getting slower, like we are sick, we do lose fitness because we took time off, or we started a family, or we did a race. And people will get attached to whatever negative story they've seen in the data, and that causes them to fall off the bandwagon, and they burn out because they've been outsourcing all of their meaning and purpose and sense of progress to a set of numbers. Or because they chronically overthink everything, and every day after their run, they feel like they have to read the tea leaves and do an astrological chart and get their palm read by Dr. Training Peaks. And then it's just, your brain can't. Like, living in the year of our Lord 2025 is sufficiently complicated without, God bless, having to look at the Training Peaks dashboard every single day.
I couldn't agree more. So let's cut through that noise. Let's talk about the 3 things that actually matter. And I know athletes already know this, so we don't have to spend a ton of time with it.
Yeah.
But the first thing is consistency. Showing up beats perfection every single time. I think enough said there. Appropriate stress, enough to adapt, easy enough to recover from.
Yeah.
And this, I'll go a little bit more in depth on this one because I think that this is more important for athletes. We already know about why consistency works. Training stimulus must exceed baseline to create adaptation. There's an important overload principle that works over weeks, months, and years. We have to stay within our recovery capacity or you will break down.
Correct.
We will be in a state of unfunctional.
There's functional overreach and then not functional overreach.
Not functioning. I'm not functioning well.
I'm unfunctional.
I think the sweet spot people are looking to get to is we're challenged, but we're capable of doing the work. We're worked, but we're not wrecked. And we're able to recover from the training so we can rinse and repeat.
Yeah. And if you are finishing workouts, long runs, like totally destroyed, not able to function, that's not productive. Don't give yourself a gold star. Don't pat yourself on the back. That's just damage.
That's so stupid.
That's very silly.
All right. Adequate recovery. Number 3, we're getting through the noise here. Sleep, nutrition, and rest days. It's as simple and as complicated as that, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's focus on these few things and do them well, and you're going to reap the benefits of the work that you do.
Yeah. So let's touch briefly to sort of, wind things down here with the idea of minimum effective dose, which is something we talk about a lot. What that means is less can often be more, and the dose response curve of like, the goal here is to get enough stimulus to provoke the adaptations we're looking for. Because again, there's like not really a neutral action, there's no like miles that come out in the wash. Those miles should either be spent running them so that you adapt to the stimulus or recovering. So, there is a threshold where more input will just create diminishing returns. In strength training, for instance, 3 exercises done consistently will always beat 10 exercises done sporadically. In running, the optimal weekly mileage is extremely individual, and more isn't always better. So in workouts, what we're looking for is the minimum stimulus that creates the adaptation, which is smarter than just maxing out on suffering, doing things that are hard for no real reason.
And this works because lower volume equates to better recovery, which equates to the ability to execute at a higher quality for longer over longer periods of time. Reduced injury risk equates to more consistency over time. So I think you guys are getting the point here. That sustainability means you can train for years, not just weeks. And that's where the real progress happens. And also, when we have a little bit of a lower volume approach, or we're doing the appropriate volume for us to elicit adaptation, we have more mental freshness. And training doesn't consume your entire life, which is really, really important for sustainability over time.
Yeah. So I think, again, the important question to ask here is, what is the least I can do to achieve this goal? That's strategy. That's not being lazy. Less done well and consistently will always beat more done poorly and sporadically. Simplicity is a feature of good training, not a bug. I think that oftentimes, I see this particularly in coaches, feel the need to sort of spice things up for no physiological reason. And they create workouts that are like maybe more mentally engaging than have like actual exercise physiology underpinning the interval construction. And just because something seems more exciting or seems complicated doesn't make it more effective.
Yes.
So let's close out here by thinking about how we can walk away from overthinking.
Love it.
So I would
Practical
say,
steps.
some practical steps. I would say right now, run by feel alone. Cover your watch, leave it at home. If this is something you struggle with, use RPE only as your guide. Notice, tune into without over identifying with breathing, leg turnover, how your body feels, energy levels. Pay attention to if easy actually feels easy, / when you notice you're pushing and saying yourself, this should feel easier, rather than just being like, this actually feels easy. And start to really see if you can sense the difference between that, like maybe 5 to 6 out of RPE and 4 to 5 RPE without that watch. And then also really tune into how those things change with terrain, temperature, and maybe even time of day.
I love that. And you could do that for a week and really start to make that feel like it's second nature, like it's part of your actual approach to training moving forward. You integrate that into who you are. And if once you've done that, think about reframing your training language.
I love this one.
Words matter. They shape how you think and feel. And this is great because this is this whole idea of cognitive restructuring, which is a psychological skill, or you could just simply call it thought flipping.
Or not being a dipshit.
Just working on the relationship you have with yourself and your training, which leads to more progress over time because it creates
that's what I should have said.
A better environment, internal environment for doing the work. So here's some examples. I failed the workout could be changed to that workout gave me information. I am behind schedule could be changed to I'm adapting to the plan I'm adapting the plan to my current fitness. I should have run faster could be changed to that was the right effort for today. I'm being lazy. That could be flipped to or changed to I'm honoring recovery. And our favorite, I'm not doing enough, could be flipped to I'm being strategic.
So next time I just leave a bunch of dishes in the sink and you call me out, can I say, I'm not lazy, I am being strategic. I'm being a strategic partner.
You can. I mean, I don't want you beating yourself up around it, but we can also recommit to putting those things in the dishwasher.
I love that. Minimum effective marriage dose.
Yes. Yes.
So I think it's important to adopt that collaborative language. I need to can become we're building, or I have to can become I get to. Proving changes improving.
Yes.
And those small shifts, like, again, I'm not saying that if you just like say, I'm improving, yay, like you're not going to become a different person overnight, but our language can shape perception, and having more specific and nuanced language helps us not approach these things with such like a blunt, like object sort of perspective, and lets us have like a bit more of a scalpel with how we use these tools. Because judgment, self-judgment, judgment on your training, judgment on yourself, judgment on recovery creates stress, which impairs recovery. Curiosity creates learning, which improves adaptation and helps you stay in the game longer, which is the number one thing here, guys.
Just think about this. I think this is a really simple and easy way to think about it. If you come to all of your training sessions with the underlying thought of I'm not doing enough, how do you think your training will end up over time? Versus if I come to training every day with the underlying thought I'm being strategic, what do you think might be more advantageous for sustaining your training over time? I'm being strategic, right? Like there's a much more positive connotation there that underscores flexibility, curiosity, non-judgment, self-compassion. And particularly the one that really sticks out to me there is the flexibility piece. Like when I'm strategic, I'm making decisions, I'm putting things where they're supposed to be to have a great outcome in the future. If my default stance is this isn't enough, one, I'm not trusting the training. So if you don't trust your training, forget it.
It's probably not going to work very well.
It's not going to work very well. Second, you're most likely going to make decisions that undermine that training over time by trying to add more on when it may not be appropriate. Also, from just a pure psychological perspective, showing up to training or your life and is feeling not enough implies like all this shit is missing.
Yeah.
I'm deficient. How I am right now is not sufficient. That is not a very powerful stance in which to approach anything that's
Yeah.
challenging.
And I feel like you can spot small dick energy training from a mile away.
Whew. I know that was a lot for people, but I hope this really helps. I know, at least for me, going through that, I'm like, oh yeah, I've done that before.
Yeah, I know. It's like just
Definitely
a
been
tape list.
there.
Made that mistake,
Yep.
been there, done that. I'll do it
Ooh,
again.
and it's also like, oh, I've grown a lot in that area. That's
Yes.
cool.
Correct.
Okay, I want to recommit to that. How am I using data on?
Am I using it to feel like a special boy, or am I actually using it?
And that's the problem with data, I think. And sometimes, we use Training Peaks with our athletes. And one of the things I often ask athletes is to not look at the data. You think about how you feel.
Yes.
And I will look at the data over time. And if there's something in the data that prompts a specific kind of like intervention, something we can control or work on now,
you'll hear from me.
I'm going to let you know.
Yeah.
If not, rinse and repeat.
Groovy.
Thanks, guys. We will see you all next week. As always, microcosmcoaching@gmail.com, microcosm-coaching.com. We love hearing from you. We've got some great coaches on our coaching team who would love to work and hear from you. So reach out for a consultation call to see how coaching can help change your relationship with sport and lead to more sustainable outcomes over time.